Hi, this is Tommy Cods, the skipper of Salt of the Sea, and I'm preparing a video about the advanced features of qtVlm. I know our good friend Nomad had put out a video on some of the basics of how to use qtVlm, and so this is an extension of that. I'm going to go through a couple of the advanced features of some different ways that you can use qtVlm. One of the things I'm going to do first, let me get rid of this point of interest up here. I want to start with a clean slate. We're sitting here in the Caribbean. I'm going to move my boat right here. And the first thing I'm going to show you on this video, and I hope maybe I may have to make two videos, depends on how detailed we get into this. But what we want to do is, we're going to create a routing, but then we're going to go in there and modify it with what's called a pivot point. And I'll kind of explain to you as we go along what that is and how it's done. Okay, so we have our boat down here, and we're going to sail up here to Jamaica. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a routing right to this point right here. Now the easiest way to do that is to go ahead and right click, put your mouse where you want to sail to, and say create a routing. Now when we do this, when we're going to create a route with some sort of modification, it's important that you make sure this box right down here, the lower box, is unchecked. And one of the first things that I do whenever I create a route is the first thing I do is I give it a color that I want to give it. We're going to give this one a color orange, and you can even come up here and rename the route. I'll call it the, spell orange right, orange RT, and we can even all the intermediate points can be prefixed. We'll prefix them with the letter O. And we're going to go ahead and route from the boat. And I just say OK, but we got to make sure that box is unchecked. And it creates our routing up to Jamaica. And the next step we're going to do is say OK. And you notice what it left was all these different lines here. So we really haven't created our route yet. We just have a routing created. And it has all these lines, and these lines are called isochrones. And basically they're based on the polar data that we're using and the wind that's in the system right now. And what they basically mean is if my boat sails in this particular pattern, it's going to reach this line at a given time. Well, if I made my boat sail up here, it would also reach this point here in the exact same time that it reached this point right here. So the way you make a pivot point is what you're going to do is you're going to say, I'm not going to sail this course here to get up to Jamaica. I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to left click on this line, and you notice it drew another line right there on the isochrone. And now I right click and say create a pivot point. So what it actually did there, you can notice it removed those isochrones from that point there, and it made this route go straight up in a northeasterly direction. You can add in yet another one if you want to. Let's say you want to, let's take this line right here. We're going to left click on it, then right click and say create yet another pivot point. And now it did the same thing. It modified the route to go up here. Now, to complete the actual route, what you have to do is come back over here to routing. We're going to edit the route, and you'll notice that there's three different routes here now. Here's our original route. Here was our first pivot point, and here's our second. So let's click on the second one, and we're going to complete by creating the route, because we want to convert it to a route. We're going to give it its own color. This is the second one. Let's give it a color blue, or this is actually the third route. And we'll say blue RT, and we'll come down and make sure all the intermediate points are prefixed with the letter B. And we're going to say, now that this is checked, complete the route. We're going to leave the simplify and optimize on maximum. What this does here, if you put it on optimum, it actually creates more intermediate points. For right now, we're going to leave it on maximum and say OK. And now it actually created our route up to Jamaica. Now, that's the route modified with the two different pivot points. So let's take our original route, since we haven't really created the original route yet. Let's click on orange. We're going to convert that and say OK. We're going to leave it at maximum, and we're going to go ahead and create that original route. And you notice it took a more southerly route through these islands that are north of South America, and then took an angle up to Jamaica. Now, one thing when you do modify routes is you're of course going to probably change the time that it takes to get up here to Jamaica. The way you check that, and Nomad pointed that out in his video, is you go up to routes, do route compare. We're going to add all, and here's our different routes. You notice we started at the same time, but our duration is quite a bit different. We added, let's see, almost 4 hours. The blue route is going to take about 4 hours longer to get up to Jamaica. So this using pivot points is probably not something you're going to use in racing, but it could be when you're making a voyage. You may not want to be in a situation where you're tacking here, so you modify your route a little bit so that, who knows, maybe this is the time that you're sleeping and you want it in a nice, nice straight line. You set up your autopilot to stay on one heading. That's kind of the basis of how to use these pivot points. I'm trying to think if there's anything, other information that I may have left out. I guess one thing I'll point out, let me show the intermediate points here. And we'll show the intermediate points on the other one. One thing that you notice, some of these intermediate points, the wind angle is, some of them are displayed in a gray and some of them are displayed in white. What that means is when you hit that point where you're actually going to change course, that's going to be at nighttime. These ones here, these intermediate points, you're going to hit them at daytime. That's going to be at night. Up here, it's going to be at night. So you notice these changes that we made. Let me go ahead. Here's another thing you can do. You can always go to your routes. Let's edit the orange route. You can always come down here and hide this route. Now we're just looking at our blue route. But if you'll notice on this blue route, all my changes, all my tacks, or actually these are jibes, are going to be made during the daytime, except for this one jibe right here. So that could be something that you want to do in your voyage from the bottom of the Caribbean islands here up to Kingston. So that's it for pivot points. The next video I'm going to make is the one on pathways. You may want to use pathways to route to multiple different points as you set up your particular routes. So that's it for now. I'll hope to see you in the next video.